This video is intended for those who are just getting into archery and who want to learn a little bit more about arrow selection. So what I'm going to go over today is my current arrow setup and my new arrow setup that I'll be going to. What's the difference and why I'm choosing that? We're going to keep this video very high level. I don't want to go into too much depth about the things we'll talk about, but hopefully you guys, it will spark some interest. You'll continue to seek out information and learn more in depth as you become ready for that. There's a lot that goes into just the arrow itself. It is the rabbit hole, and boy, you can go down chasing forever. So again, I'm going to keep this high level. I'm going to try to keep it very beginner level as I'm learning with you guys on this. So this is my current setup and my current arrow. This is a gold tip hunter. It's a 340 spine and it's an 8.9 GPI or grains per inch. So that's basically how much it weighs, its mass. The 340 is how stiff is the spine of the arrow, okay? So what I'm mainly going to focus on is that GPI, okay? How much does that arrow weigh? I'm going to also focus on the diameter of the arrow and what the arrow is covered in. So this one is 8.9, like I mentioned before. It's a 6mm diameter, meaning the circumference of this arrow is 6mm, and this is a carbon shaft. So what I am moving towards, these aren't the actual arrows that I'm getting. However, these are an almost exact replica of. These were given to me by a buddy and I've been playing with them and I really like it. These are an Easton full metal jacket. And the difference between this and this, the main differences, at least high level again, is the weight. So this one is, the Easton full metal jacket is 11.3 GPI versus the 8.9. Make sure I got that right, 8.9. This is a 5mm diameter, and it is a carbon arrow, but it's covered in an aluminum jacket, okay? So this is gonna have more kinetic energy than this because of its mass. So kinetic energy is basically 1/2 mass times velocity squared. I'm not gonna go into too much detail about that, but I did do some shooting today to illustrate what this means. This is going to have more mass, it's going to have more kinetic energy, so when it punches that animal, so to speak, actually kinetic energy is something that we discussed at length when I did martial arts. So when this punches the animal, there's going to be more energy involved in this arrow than this arrow because it's a heavier arrow. Also, the diameter is 5mm versus 6mm. So there's less surface area on this arrow. When it passes through the animal, the likelihood of having a pass through is much greater, thus creating an entry hole and an exit hole, creating 2 wounds so the animal will die quicker, more humanely. And there's less surface area to create drag. Also, as this travels through the air, there's less surface area for the wind to affect it. Now, how big of an effect of that is, honestly, I don't know, but concept is there and it makes sense. And lastly, the aluminum covering on this is a there's much less friction when it enters the media. So again, higher chances of pass through or more penetration into the animal versus what I'm using currently. Did some testing today on this, and in full admission, this isn't a scientific test, but shooting it through my phone target, it clearly shows what I'm talking about here. Again, not scientific, but I've shot both of these enough to get an idea that these definitely have a greater pass through. So let's go out and take a look. You can see the penetration here. Here's the 6mm carbon. Here's the 5mm aluminum.
much different. And in all honesty, this is not an exact scientific study. There's a lot of variables with where they're hitting there and the consistency and the density of this foam. But what I have noticed is, by and large, when I shoot these two different arrows, these will penetrate much deeper, and oftentimes I'll get clean pass-throughs with this. It'll actually come all the way out and be sitting on the other side of the target.
Well, that time I got passed through on both of them. So to give you an idea, target, there's the 6mm, and I had to look for the 5. There it is right there. Center of this is pretty shot out, so what we'll do is we'll go for these, staying at 20 yards, and we'll just compare the depth penetration of these two arrows. So looking at the top two, clearly more penetration with the heavier arrow, no surprise, right? And the bottom two, same thing, more penetration. There you have it, an example of what those heavier arrows will do. However, you can't just focus on that kinetic energy in a funnel to make your decisions. Momentum is another example of some things that you want to consider. But biggest thing I would say to help your archery is get out there and shoot. That's the way you're going to learn the most. That's the way I've learned the most, is get out there and actually do it. So hopefully this has helped you learn just a little bit, prompt you to dig a little bit deeper and find out more information that you need to make your decisions. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you.